Let's do an eye tutorial using the Enmy markers. Either screen cap the colors here or at the end, they'll be there. First thing I did is I put out a swatch sheet of all the colors I was planning on using. I find this to be really important because I can see the differences in hues as well as values between these colors. This is going to inform our choices and let us be able to work around adding shadow without having to think too hard on it, as well as understanding which hues should go in warmer areas versus cooler areas. I highly recommend you make one of these somewhere. It doesn't have to be on the same sheet of paper. Enmy has its own swatch sheet. I just didn't use it. Now, these two are similar in hue, but one of them is slightly deeper value-wise. So we're going to use that for the whites of the eyes. That is B7 for the lower part of the eye where it's supposed to be a little brighter, and BG5 for the top of the eye to add a little bit of depth and shadow. And you're going to mix these while they're still wet. If you want more of a crisp line, you'll wait till they're dry. Then I'm going to fill in the pupil. I go in with G8 in order to get the base down while it is still wet, then move down value-wise to G2 and carve out kind of where I want that pupil to be. Again, while still wet, now I'm going to take our darkest color that we have, that is G11. I'm going to mix that with my finger so that it lightens the value a little bit. I am going to use G11 here now to define the eyelash. In order to make this eyelash line look a little less flat and 2D, use BG6 to help give it a little depth and dimension. I should be looking a little something like this. Now we're going to add a little bit more light, so I go in with G7, which is a similar color family, but a little lighter than G8. Was our base color, if you'll remember. And the important part here is to just kind of do a little bit of back and forth until you're happy about the pupil. You can always start over from step 1, doing G8 on the pupil. You add in a lower waterline, BG6, which is a grayish sort of color, and then come back around with G11 to redefine the lower lash line. Eventually go back in and fill this in, as well as change what the waterline is. But don't worry about it too much if you screw up the bottom line a little bit. That's why it's nice to use acrylic markers. They're nice and opaque. We just use B7 to clean right back up. Now, so that our eye isn't floating as much, do some of the skin around. I used G6 for this, then went in with G8 to still wet to shade. Once I was happy with that, we go a step darker and I use BG4, which has a slight bluish hint for the shadows. It helps define some value in here while adding a cooler aspect. Just carving out the lower lid there. So that's that BG4 bluish color coming in. We'll eventually be mixing that with G11, but for right now, we're gonna do the highlight of the inner corner of the eye. I made this a warmer tone. Was G3. It's just showing there's a lot more light hitting it. You don't have to make it the more yellowish green. You can just go value-wise lighter. It does add a slightly warmer element to it. That's a little bit easier to translate. The warm versus cool, shadow versus light. We're gonna use all the same skin colors to just kind of fill in. I use BG1 underneath the eye bag would kind of be, since that's usually a cooler grayish tone. From here, you can just experiment with adding colors where you want to, shapes where you want to. You can blend as smooth or as rough as you like to. I like to have a mix of smooth and rough areas for my style. This is when the delayed gratification hits. So we're going to add in our shines. I use BG3, B9, and I even go back in and add V5, VR1, and VR3. Really give a little bit of contrast to that I felt was lacking. Hopefully you learned something from this tutorial.